Peppa Pig, Grandpy Rabbit in Space. Peppa and her friends are at playgroup. Today they have a special treat. Grandpy Rabbit is here to talk about space rockets. Rocket! Snorts George. Hello everybody! Grandpy Rabbit shouts. Grandpy Rabbit has a very loud voice. He holds up a space rocket. It's a bit small, says Susie Sheep. This is just a model, explains Grandpy Rabbit. The rocket I went in was ginormous. Everyone gasps. Grandpy Rabbit has flown to the moon in a space rocket. Grandpy Rabbit lifts the rocket into the air. When you go into space, you count backwards, he says. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off! Peppa and her friends all shout together, blast off! There I was, flying through space, remembers Grandpy Rabbit. Ooh, say the children. When I landed on the moon, says Grandpy Rabbit, it was so beautiful I was lost for words. That sounds nice, says Madame Gazelle. Grandpy Rabbit goes on. Did you know that when you're on the moon, you can jump as high as a house? Suddenly, something strange happens. Grandpy Rabbit stops talking. Oh dear, says Madame Gazelle. He has lost his voice. Madame Gazelle asks Dr. Brown Bear to come and help Grandpy Rabbit. Dr. Brown Bear looks into Grandpy Rabbit's mouth. I see, he says. A very serious case of losing a voice. The doctor pours some special pink medicine onto his spoon. Open wide, he says. Grandpy Rabbit swallows the medicine. Try saying, ah, now, says Dr. Brown Bear. The doctor listens carefully. Ah! Booms Grandpy Rabbit. The medicine has made his voice much better. Grandpy Rabbit gets back to his story. I wrote a song on the moon, he cries. Would you like to hear it? No, thank you, says Madame Gazelle and Dr. Brown Bear. Yes, please, say the children. All together now, sings Grandpy Rabbit. I got up this morning, I went to the moon, and all I could see was the moon and the stars, the moon and the stars, the moon and the stars, the moon and the stars. Everybody loves singing along with Grandpy Rabbit. The end. Peppa Pig, Grandpy Rabbit's Boatyard. It is a lovely sunny day. Peppa, George and Granny Pig are going out with Grandpa Pig on his boat. Ahoy there, Peppa and George, shouts Grandpa Pig. I'll move the boat a bit nearer. Oh dear, Grandpa Pig's boat is sinking. A captain never leaves his sinking ship, says Grandpa Pig. The boat sinks to the bottom of the river. Grandad Dog arrives on his boat. Hooray! I'm taking my boat to the boatyard today, he says. Would you mind taking mine too? asks Grandpa Pig. Of course, replies Grandpa Dog. Where is your boat?
I'm standing on it, says Grandpa Pig sadly. Grandad Dog's truck lifts the boat out of the water.
Wow!
Next stop, the Boatyard,
says Grandad Dog. What's a boatyard? asks Peppa. A boatyard is where broken boats get mended, says Granny Pig. The truck arrives at Grampy Rabbit's boatyard.
Ahoy there, me hearties, bellows Grampy Rabbit. What happened to your boat, Grandpa Pig?
Someone drove it into a mooring post, says Grandpa Pig. Can you mend it?
Of course,
says Grampy Rabbit. Grampy Rabbit examines the hole in Grandpa Pig's boat.
I need to find something to patch it up,
says Grampy Rabbit. Grampy Rabbit collects scrap metal. He uses it to mend boats.
Wow!
Grampy Rabbit has lots of scrap metal. He has used some of it to build a submarine.
It fills up with water,
says Grampy Rabbit.
So it's very good at going down, but not so good at coming back up.
Grampy Rabbit finds an old washing machine.
Now this is what I've been looking for,
he says. You're going to mend my boat with a bit of old washing machine? asks Grandpa Pig.
Yes,
says Grampy Rabbit. Grampy Rabbit covers up the hole with the old piece of metal.
There, good as new,
he says.
Hooray!
Hooray! Everyone cheers.
Now we test it,
says Grampy Rabbit. Everyone goes back to the river with Grandpa Pig's boat.
It floats,
says Grampy Rabbit.
Usually they sink on the first go.
Now we can go for our day on the river, says Peppa. Grampy Rabbit plays his banjo and everyone sings as the boat bobs up and down. The end. Peppa Pig, Grampy Rabbit's Lighthouse. Peppa George and Danny Dog are helping deliver supplies to Grandad Dog's friend, Grampy Rabbit. Where does Grampy Rabbit live? asks Peppa.
Out at sea on a rock,
says Grandad Dog. On a rock, says Peppa. Yes, in that lighthouse, says Danny.
Wow!
Oh, gasp Peppa and George. They land at the lighthouse.
Hooray!
Visitors! exclaims Grampy Rabbit. I haven't had visitors in many a moon. I get lonely with just the sea and the sky for company.
How long have you been here? asked Peppa.
Since Tuesday,
says Grampy Rabbit.
I've got tales to tell, says Grampy Rabbit, if you'd like to hear. No thanks,
says Grandad Dog quickly. Yes, please, reply Peppa and Danny. Grampy Rabbit starts to sing.
I got up this morning, the sea was still there, so was the sky. The sea, the sky, the sea, the sky.
Peppa and Danny join in. Why is your house called the Lighthouse? asks Peppa.
I'll show you,
says Grampy Rabbit. They climb a staircase to the very top of the lighthouse.
It's called a lighthouse because it has this big light at the top, says Grampy Rabbit.
Wow!
It shines through the dark, helping sailors find their way.
Grampy Rabbit takes out a megaphone.
And when it's foggy, I use this foghorn, he says.
Fog! That's loud, cries Peppa.
No fog today, just sea and sky, says Grampy Rabbit sadly. The stories I could tell. No thanks, says Grandad Dog. We must be going.
Peppa, George, Danny and Grandad Dog set off for home. It is now very dark.
Don't worry, says Grandad Dog. The light from Grampy Rabbit's lighthouse will show us the way home.
Grampy Rabbit is ready for bed, so he turns the light out. He also turns the big light out. Grandad Dog phones Grampy Rabbit.
Could you turn the big light on again?
He asks. The big light shines again. Hooray! Cry Peppa and Danny. It is getting foggy. I can't see the light anymore, says Peppa. Grandad Dog phones Grampy Rabbit.
It's us again, he says. Can you sound the foghorn, please?
Fog! Bellows Grampy Rabbit. Fog! Grampy Rabbit's voice is like a foghorn. Thanks to Grampy Rabbit, they arrived back safe on land.
Hooray!
Mummy Pig, Daddy Pig, and Mrs. Dog are waiting to take them home. We went to a lighthouse, says Peppa excitedly.
Grampy Rabbit's lighthouse guided us home safely,
says Grandad Dog. Grampy Rabbit sang a song. Would you like to hear it? Asks Peppa.
No thanks,
says Grandad Dog. Yes, please, say the parents. Peppa and Danny sing. I got up this morning, the sea was still there. So was the sky, the sea, the sky. The end. Peppa Pig, Grampy Rabbit's hovercraft. Grandpa Pig is taking Peppa and George out for the first time on his sailing boat. Hello, old bean, says Mr. Stallion. Grandpa, that man just called you an old bean, cries Peppa. It's another way of saying old friend, says Grandpa Pig. Now, where did I leave my boat? Says Grandpa Pig. What does your boat look like, Grandpa? Asks Peppa. It has a little red flag on top of the mast, says Grandpa Pig. Like that little flag? Asks Peppa. Oh dear, Grandpa Pig's sailing boat has sunk.
Oh no!
Grampy Rabbit zooms past the boat.
What is that monstrosity?
Asks Mr. Stallion. Is it allowed in the sailing club? Asks Mrs. Corgi. Grampy Rabbit reaches Peppa and George.
Hello!
Shouts Grampy Rabbit.
What a marvellous day for sailing.
Hello, Grampy Rabbit, says Peppa.
Grandpa Pig, you look sad,
says Grampy Rabbit.
What's the matter?
We can't go sailing because our boat has sunk, says Peppa.
Why don't you hop onto my hovercraft?
Suggests Grampy Rabbit. You can't drive that thing around here, says Grandpa Pig. You're not a member of the sailing club.
Well, you're a member, aren't you? Replies Grampy Rabbit. So I'm sure it will be perfectly fine.
Hooray!
Peppa, George and Grandpa Pig board Grampy Rabbit's hovercraft.
Hold on to your hats,
shouts Grampy Rabbit as they zoom across the sea. Grampy Rabbit's hovercraft can go on land and water.
Wow.
Mr. Stallion and Mrs. Corgi are enjoying a peaceful day sailing. "Oh, what is that horrible noise?" cries Mrs. Corgi. "It's that monstrosity again," says Mr. Stallion. "Whoopee! Ha ha!" says Grampy Rabbit. Grampy Rabbit stops off at the Sailing Club Cafe to get some juice. "This is the life, eh?" says Grampy Rabbit. "The sea and the sky and the boat sailing by."
Wow.
"But the boats are not sailing by, Grampy Rabbit," says Peppa. "There's no wind," says Grandpa Pig. "Without wind, sailing boats can't sail." Suddenly, they hear voices calling for help. "It's Mr. Stallion and Mrs. Corgi. We need to rescue them, Grampy Rabbit," says Peppa. Grampy Rabbit zooms towards the shouting. "Ahoy there!" he calls. "We can't get back to the dock without the wind," says Mrs. Corgi. "Toss me a line and I'll tow you back in," says Grampy Rabbit. Grampy Rabbit's hovercraft tows the sailing boats back to shore. "We're towing the boats to shore, we're towing the boats to shore," sings Grampy Rabbit. "We're towing the boats to the car park, towing the boats to Bee Park," sings Grampy Rabbit. "Now you don't have to go so far to walk your cars." "But sailing boats don't go on land like hovercrafts," gasps Grandpa Pig. "Grandpa Pig, who is your friend?" asks Mr. Stallion. "We must thank him for rescuing us." "His name is Grampy Rabbit," replies Grandpa Pig. "Grampy Rabbit, delighted to meet you, old bean," says Mr. Stallion. "You too, old bean," replies Grampy Rabbit. The end. Peppa Pig Bicycle Race. It is a lovely sunny day. Peppa and George are going out for a ride. Peppa rings her bell. Ding ding. "Come on, George," she says. "Follow me." Peppa is riding her bicycle. George is riding his tricycle. "Hurry up, George," calls Peppa. "You're going so slowly," says George. Peppa sees her friends Danny Dog, Susie Sheep and Rebecca Rabbit. They are riding their bicycles too. Danny points down the hill. "Let's have a race to the bottom," he says. Danny, Susie and Rebecca ride very fast. Peppa rides quite fast. George does not ride very fast at all. "George is riding a baby bike," snorts Peppa. "So are you," says Danny. "You've still got stabilizers." Peppa looks down at her bike. It is the only one with stabilizers on it. "Let's ride up the hill again," says Danny. "No," says Peppa. "I think I'll stay here." Peppa asks Daddy Pig to take her stabilizers off. "Do you think you can ride without them?" he says. "I can do it," Peppa nods. I can. She gets on her bicycle and starts pedaling. Uh-oh, Peppa falls onto the grass. Riding without stabilizers is hard. George giggles. It is not funny. Peppa frowns. Daddy Pig helps Peppa to get back on her bicycle. Let's try again, he says. Ready, steady, go! Don't let go of me, Daddy, says Peppa. Don't worry, says Daddy Pig. I've got you. Peppa pedals faster and faster. You're doing really well, shouts Daddy Pig. Peppa looks round. Daddy Pig has let go. Ho ho, he cries. You're cycling on your own. Peppa can ride on her own without stabilizers.
Wow.
She goes to find her friends. Look at me, shouts Peppa. I can ride my bike properly. Danny, Susie and Rebecca all cheer. Hooray! Come on, says Peppa. Let's race down the hill again. Danny, Susie and Rebecca ring their bells. Peppa loves riding her bicycle. Everyone loves riding bicycles. The end. Peppa Pig, Cold Winter Day. It is a cold winter day. Peppa and George have wrapped up warm in their hats, scarves and mittens to go and feed the ducks. Look, it's a muddy puddle, cries Peppa. Peppa loves jumping in muddy puddles. She runs over to the puddle, but as she tries to jump in, she slips. Oh, it's frozen solid, she says. Snorts George. It's not funny, George, says Peppa. Daddy Pig loves muddy puddles too. Be careful, Daddy, shouts Peppa. Daddy Pig has jumped straight onto the frozen puddle. Whoa, says Daddy Pig, wobbling about. It's lucky I'm so good at balancing. Everyone keeps walking until they find the duck pond.
Wow.
Peppa and George throw some bread to the ducks, but it just bounces along the surface. The pond is frozen too. Peppa and George both giggle as the ducks slide around. Sorry for laughing, Mrs. Duck, says Peppa, but you do look funny. Look, it's snowing, says Daddy Pig. I'm going to catch lots of snowflakes, shouts Peppa. Says George as he tries to catch them too. Hello, Peppa and George, says Susie Sheep. We're going to have a toboggan race.
Wow.
Please, can we go and watch? asks Peppa. Of course, says Mummy Pig. Let's walk up the hill to the start.
Hooray!
Daddy Pig picks up George because it is too slippery for him to walk up the hill on his own. What about me? says Peppa. It's a bit slippery for me too. Come on then, says Daddy Pig, scooping up Peppa. Mummy Pig tells Daddy Pig to be extra careful not to fall over. Don't worry, Mummy Pig, he says. I'm very good at balancing. At the top of the hill, all the toboggans are just setting off when Daddy Pig topples over and starts skidding down the hill. He zooms past Danny Dog, Zoe Zebra and Pedro Pony. Soon, Daddy Pig is in the lead. Peppa and George are sitting on Daddy Pig's tummy. Whee! They call. They are enjoying the ride. Peppa and George win the race.
Hooray!
My daddy makes a great toboggan, Peppa tells everyone. All the children are laughing about Peppa and George's special toboggan ride. It's not funny, says Daddy Pig. It is a bit funny, says Mummy Pig. I suppose it is a bit funny. Daddy Pig agrees. Everyone laughs. The end. First words with Peppa Pig. Dens. Peppa's many friends came to play in her treehouse. The treehouse is yellow and its door is green. Grandpa Pig made the treehouse for us. It is the best, said Peppa. Peppa made tea for her 5 friends in the treehouse. Don't forget me, said Zoe Zebra. Don't be sad. I have made you some tea in the green cup, said Peppa. Danny Dog and Pedro Pony came to call at the treehouse. Is there room for us in your treehouse? Said Danny Dog. I don't think you will fit. There are 5 friends in here. There are too many friends in here, said Peppa. Grandpa Pig made a den for Danny and Pedro. I like its flag. It is the best, said Pedro Pony. If you pull this bit, its red door goes up and down, said Grandpa Pig. It has so many good bits. It is the best, said Danny Dog. Thank you. Peppa and her friends came to call at the den. Its red door was pulled down.
Wow.
Is there room for us in the den? Said Peppa. I don't think you will fit. There are too many friends in here, said Danny. Grandpa Pig got some string. If you pull the string from the treehouse to the den, you can call your friends, said Grandpa Pig. The friends pulled the string. The treehouse Grandpa Pig made for us is the best. Its door is green, called Susie Sheep. The den that Grandpa Pig made for us is the best. Its door goes up and down if you pull it, called Danny Dog. Peppa's 5 friends went to the den. The den is the best as the door goes up and down, they said. I don't think so. I still think the treehouse is the best. Its door is green, said Peppa. Then the rain came. The den did not have a roof. Many of the friends went back to the treehouse. The treehouse is the best as its roof will keep the rain off, they said. I don't think so. I still think the den is the best, said Danny Dog. Then the sun came back. The rain had made 5 spots of mud on the green grass. Now we don't want to go in the den or the treehouse, said Susie Sheep. The mud is best for us. The end. Learn with Peppa Pig. Level 1. Tip tip and sit sip. Tip tip. Nip nip. sit, sip, nap, nap. Let's read another story. Tap, tip, sit, 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 pit, pat. The end.
Hi kids, did you have fun watching this video? Then like and subscribe for more.